Hey guys, subscribe for daily knife content, and if you're shopping for knives and gear, make sure you check out the description of the video you're watching right now for links to some great online retailers. There's also individual links for knives that I personally recommend. Thanks! What's going on YouTube? Metal Complex here, and welcome to episode 3 of my current series, The Very Best EDC Folding Knife. This is a series where I go over my experience over the last 10 years and however many hundreds and hundreds of knives that I've handled and carried and used, right? What is it that I'm reaching for? Why? We kind of dig into that. I did a series about, coming at this from an enthusiast perspective. I did another series about coming at it, dollar for dollar, right? Going at it from the budget, trying to maximize utility for, each dollar spent. But I want to come at it from just like the knives that I'm reaching for, just pure utilitarian, blocking out those two extreme sides, and not trying to make it about either of those things, and just discussing in depth exactly why I'm reaching for the stuff that I'm reaching for. We are on episode 3 today, and that's going to be deployment. So that's going to be topic of discussion. We talked about overall length in episode 1. This is the conclusion that I came to. These conclusions are not law. I'm not saying this is going to be absolutely ideal for every single person, just for me, right? So in each of these episodes, you can take this information for what it's worth to you, or take the parts of it that are, worth the most to you, and you can ignore the rest, right? Just apply the idea to whatever it is that you enjoy or, carry, and it might help steer you in a direction that works out better for you. But that's the whole idea of this series. Episode 2, we talked about materials. These are the conclusions that I came to. But again, everybody's got their own stuff. You can check out episode 1 and 2 by finding the Very Best EDC Folding Knife playlist on my YouTube channel. So deployment. What are we talking about today in terms of deployment? I've got a whole bunch of knives with common means of deployment laid out here. I don't have every single deployment method out here, but I have the common ones. I have the ones that are going to help me drive my point home. I already have my preferences, but I want to go over a bunch of different types of deployments methods and talk about why they have or have not worked for me in the past, why I find them more or less convenient, right? Each one has its merits. I'm not going to completely dismiss one as, I'm not going to sit here and go, this is terrible, it sucks for everybody. It's not. No, I'm gonna talk about why it may or may not work, and then I'm gonna choose the one that I think is ideal for me. Thanks so much to my generous patrons for supporting me right now. You can find my Patreon right down in the description. And please, if you have not already, make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. A lot of these knives, by the way, can be found down in the description. So if you're curious about any of this stuff, I'll try to make mention what it is, and you can check it out at the retailers listed right down below. Alright, so I'm going to get a couple of things out of the way. Like I said, not everything's out here, but stuff that people are generally familiar with is out here. I'm going to talk about stuff that's just not going to work for me. Anything that requires two hands to open and it's slow, right? This is a knife that's going to be, if we're talking about the most ideal, the very best EDC folding knife, this is a knife that's going to be on my person, hypothetically every single day, forever. And I'm going to use it, the name of the game here is versatility. Now, me, day to day, I'm not doing crazy stuff with my knife. I'm part of what I consider to be the 80%, or the common man, right? Those of us who are like me, which, like I said, I feel is the vast majority, we're just using our knives for regular stuff. Cardboard, envelopes, maybe some rubber, some wood, some rope, right? Just little things, maybe some scraping, little things like that. We're not scaling buildings, right? We're not chopping down trees. We're not doing stuff like that. A lot of that stuff is not necessarily a knife task, but I can understand how some people find themselves in circumstances like that, where they have the knife. It's not the best tool for the job, right? But it's there, and it's better than not having anything, right? People who, use their knives for stuff like that, they belong in the 20% category. It's a realistic category, right? Then less than 1%, when I say scaling buildings, actually, less than 1% of people are actually using their knives as a grappling hook, as a diving board, a means to scale a building, right? An object you would use to pry the motor out of a truck. Those are all ridiculous things, and anybody who claims that they do stuff like that with their knife is either lying or not. They need a different tool. But anyways, yeah, I'm part of the 80%. I still pretty much require that my EDC folding knife has a one-handed means of deployment. I do not want to do this. I don't want to do that. I'm sorry. I almost fell asleep in that transition. I literally almost passed out. Not really. But you know what I mean. No, I can't do that. There's always going to be people defending the open L. I'm sorry. It's just not. I don't want to do that. And periodically, I do find myself outside in not necessarily like I'm not like out batoning wood in the rain, right? But I find myself sometimes wearing gloves. This is not I don't want to have to do the thing where you bite the tip of the thumb on the glove, and then you shake it off, and then you open the thing up, and if it's an open L, it's and then you look up, and a decade has passed, a whole new family has moved into your house, and you're like, what happened? It took me so long to open this up. No, I'm sorry, open L fans, I'm sorry. There's absolutely no way. For some people, day to day, this isn't a problem, but it's going to cause more problems or more inconveniences than just having a simple one-handed means of deployment. So nail nick, in a slip, even like a slip joint knife or anything that's like laid in like this. Now, it just doesn't have an easy way to deploy it, right? Some people aren't going to need that, but I need a more convenient means of deployment. Let's see here. Let's talk about, about OTFs. These are super convenient, right? That's easy. Easy. Doesn't matter if you're wearing gloves or not, right? So what could possibly be the problem with this? Well, as many people have said, sometimes with OTFs, it's not like I'm going to be, out in dirt and debris all the time. When I say periodically I find myself, man, allergies. Guys, I get seasonal allergies really bad. But anyways, it's not like I'm going to be out in dirt and debris all the time. When I go out and work in my backyard, it's more often in the summertime, right? But it's, once every couple of weeks, something like that, and I'm doing minor stuff. But in those environments, it is possible that, debris could get inside of this, which is going to be it's just going to be a part of having an automatic knife or an OTF with a switch, right? So while this is probably the most convenient means of deployment out there, the style of knife entirely might create an issue that would make this, ironically, not be as convenient, right? Because it's like, if the switch is convenient, great, but if the blade's not going to deploy because of the nature of the knife, and that's in a rare circumstance. I've actually not ever had that knife misfire, right? So if that's going to happen, it's not something I want to have to worry about. So yeah, it's mega convenient. It's never been an issue. I love it, right? Easy to manipulate with gloves, which might be the case even for us, what I'm going to call us 80%ers, right? It's great. It's just not gonna be absolutely the most ideal. I like the idea of, I'm one of those people, and I think a lot of us are like this, is fewer parts. The fewer the parts on the object, the better, right? It's the best types of tools have the fewest parts. So these are excellent, but it's not going to be an ideal choice, right? The next type of deploy, I feel like there was something with OTFs that I was leaving out. Yeah, here's the other problem with this, right? And I brought this up, in one of the other videos. I want to be able to cross state lines and I want to minimize the potential legal issues, right? So no matter how small this is, sometimes OTFs are just not legal, right? It's better than I think it's better than it used to be in recent years, but it's still like, I'd rather not be like, am I going to get a felony tag? I don't want to, that's not something I want to have to worry about as much, right? So that's another problem. Kind of in the same ballpark with legality, right, of course, the side opening automatics. You push it, these are mega convenient, and also, a side opening automatic knife like this is the ProTech SNG Titanium Edition. Even in gloves, you push a button and it opens, right? Here's the issue that I have with this guy. Like, you don't have to worry about the dirt and debris thing, right, because it doesn't have the opening hole. I think this runs on phosphor bronze, which is excellent. Right? The problem with this is having to fight it on the way back down. If you've ever worked with an automatic knife, getting the knife out of your pocket and then pushing the button, fantastic. It's ready to go. It's cut. Sometimes I find myself laying the knife down right after I've made my cut and then completing whatever it is that I'm doing with two hands and then picking the knife back up and closing it with two hands. Can you close it with one hand? Yes. But if you're, I've made this argument many times. If you're up on a ladder and you're already dealing with balance, you're already dealing with holding whatever it is that you're doing, your left hand is busy. So your brain is preoccupied with what your left hand is doing, and at the same time, it's devoting some, let's say it's devoting some RAM to keeping your balance, right, and your footing. And then with your right hand, you have to work against the spring of a blade, and one end is sharp. So, best case scenario, you close it. Another scenario is you slip off of it, you throw it, right? Or worst case scenario is you cut yourself with it on accident, and then you throw it, and then you fall off the ladder. And then whatever you were holding falls down the roof back on top of your face. Anybody who's worked construction, like a lot of people I'm sure are laughing, but if you've worked in, not necessarily construction, if you've just been in this scenario before, something similar has likely happened to you when you're worried about, and people are like, well, you just need to, make sure you got a good footing. Make sure you got to be careful. You got to be responsible. You don't get to that point without having something like that happen to you. So don't preach. Don't preach to us, because we know you didn't get there by just never, ever, ever having anything bad happen to you. No. Stuff like that has to happen to you before you can stomp around with your hands on your waist going, you should just, put yourself in a safer situation. Sorry, I took the there's some Hank Hill in there. But yeah, no, that kind of stuff happens, right? The idea is minimize the likeliness for something like that to happen, right? And if it does happen, it's a learning experience, right? But this entire series is based on what I've learned, right, from doing certain things with certain objects in the past and finding out that doesn't really work for me. So, a side-opening automatic knife, while they can be massively convenient, it's something I just get so, I'm in a bad spot, and then, that's kind of the feeling that I get. Assisted knives, the same kind of thing, right? Yeah, I'm also not really, like, assisted knives is just kind of, I'm over it, Kershaw Blur S30V, that's one of the best assisted knives you can get. I just don't like having to fight the darn thing, And I don't need a spring in there to throw my blade with a thumb stud. I don't need it, That's why people de-assist so many knives. Because you don't need it. It's like somebody, like if me as a 33-year-old man was like crossing the street and a Boy Scout came up to be like, can I help you cross the street, sir? No, thank you. I actually don't need your assistance. I'm perfectly capable of simply walking across the street because this is a simple task, right? Now, if the blade was massively hindered by something, right? I guess in this example, right, if it was like a much more elderly person that was having difficulty doing this task, right, then they might need some assistance. No. Long-winded analogy. I don't need help crossing the street. I also don't need help deploying my blades. If the design is, there, right, it's got the appropriate type of design, the detents right, the thumb studs or opening hole or flipper tab, it's all in the right place, it's going to function properly, right? We don't need the spring. We don't need another thing that can fail or that we have to worry about. What we have left here, pretty excellent means of deployment. Let's talk about the whole thumb disc. I know people are like, what about the wave? What about the Emerson wave? Pass. I'm sorry. No, thank you. I don't need to pull the knife out of my pocket and have it deployed. That's not my world. Pull it out and I'll deploy it, when it is out of my pocket. It's fine with me. I just want it to be convenient to deploy once it's out of my pocket. I don't need the speed thing. Again, not fighting off bears, ninjas, pirates, space robots in the parking lot of my local grocery store. That's not my world. Again, I'm not coming down on people that are, take the self-defense part of this world very seriously. It's just not, up to this point, has not been my experience. So that's not what this series is based on. It's based on my experience, and that's not been a part of it. The thumb disc works a lot like a thumb stud, honestly. I don't know why I said honestly. In the case of the Hinderer FireTech here, this is a tri-way. Golly, did they do this right, guys. Seriously. Oh, Hinderer FireTech tri-way is just excellent. It's fine. And honestly, I don't think it would really be... I mean, you can slow wheel it out. In the case of this one, you can do the thumb flick. You can do reverse flick. No problem. The problem here, it's going to work in every single circumstance except for when I'm wearing gloves. And I can still do it when I'm wearing gloves. It's just a little... I can see myself going... You know, and then finally getting it. Nah, I don't want to have to dick around with it. It's not, you know, it's not fun. When you need your knife to deploy, when you just need... It's in that moment when you're doing something else... You don't need the knife to be the sparkling golden phoenix of awesomeness in that moment. You just need it to open up and cut. And then go back in your pocket, right? So that's not fun when it's being the shiny golden object that's just hard to deploy, right? That's not fun. That's just frustrating. The thumb disc works, but in some situations with a glove, it'll still work. It's just not as convenient as some other deployment methods. That's just not my favorite thing in the entire world. And honestly, the same thing goes with thumb studs. Now, it depends on the design. It depends on where the placement is. But, you know, one of the most hailed workhorses of the last decade in this knife world is the Ontario Rat #1. And truthfully, you know, how I came to this conclusion that thumb studs are just not the most ideal thing for me. And again, it's like the thumb disc. In most situations, it's fine. But when I'm wearing gloves, it's just not, it's not quite in the best place. This knife has been carried and used in like every single situation you could imagine. I have done crazy dumb things with that knife. And it's totally fine. But the one frustration I have is when I'm wearing gloves, I'm like, yeah, I can't get it. It drives me nuts. Sometimes I have to take because... You know, if you're wearing like really thin material gloves, then okay, you can generally get underneath her. But if you're wearing like the thicker leather gloves, right? If you're, you know, working with wood, or you're working with like if you're getting rid of dead rose bushes or something, then you're going to be wearing the thick leather ones, right? That makes your thumb about twice as thick as normal, and it's so much harder to get that. I found myself having to pinch this and open. I don't want to have to, you know, people are going to tell me, then just use 2 hands. I don't want to have to do that. I want it to be as few moves as possible from, excuse me, the moment where I'm like, I need my knife. Pull from the pocket, deploy, cut, disengage, put it back in the pocket. That's what I want. I'm not concerned with all this fuss and mess. I'm concerned with the task at hand. So I want to minimize those movements, right? So yeah, that's not going to be perfectly ideal in every circumstance, right? So thumb studs, same with the Ritter Hogue here, which I love. It's great. This guy's actually even easier to deploy. You could make an argument to just push down with a glove. You could. I still think there's a more convenient deployment method. People were like, I can guess. I know what he's going to pick. I crack jokes at you guys, but the truth is that when I'm sarcastic like that, I'm really just... I know most of my audience knows when I'm messing around. And I want you guys to laugh with me, because I'm not really laughing at you. I'm laughing at my past self as well. You know, because I remember like wanting to jump in and be like, obviously, you know, with some elitist nonsense, or like just like come to what I assume is the obvious conclusion, or reduce like, if I were to watch a series like this 5 years ago, my instinct would be to reduce it to something simple and just be like, well, it doesn't even need to, like, why are we even talking about this? Obviously, and then reduce it to something small. Yeah, I remember, you know, coming to that conclusion myself, and you almost kind of subconsciously pat yourself on the back, like, ooh, how smart am I? I figured it out before he was done. Yeah, this isn't going to conclude in a way that I think most people... I think a lot of you, you know, might kind of be like, I didn't expect it to go that way, right? So a lot of this is straightforward. A lot of it isn't. Depends on your perspective, right? Some of these episodes are going to be a little bit more straightforward than others. A flipper tab. Yeah, let's get this out of the way. So this is the new 2021 Evo Typhoon. This particular one, the upgraded model in Damasteel. And this is the harpoon, the sort of clip point harpoon. You can't get these right now. There was a pre-order back in June, and then we all had to wait for 6 months, and they finally came in. And who knows when there'll be more. Right now, your best bet's the secondary market. Base price, just so anybody, if anybody's wondering, satin finished blade I think is $350. The base price on this guy was $515. But anyways, flipper tab. This is one of the very best, in my opinion, the best flipper tabs in existence. It can be, manipulated with gloves, with bare finger, right? Doesn't really matter. That's a pretty darn good deployment system. It does create for a little bit of an unnecessary object sticking out of the back of your knife. And a lot of low-profile flip, like for example, like the Spyderco Smock, that has a flipper tab that's up here on the top, and it doesn't stick out of the back. It's a great flipper tab. If it's tuned correctly, it'll work. And honestly, I think it could potentially work on a knife. You have just that on a knife that's just a flipper. You have just that thing. So, while most of the time you are going to hit it, you do have to hit it just right. Tell me if you agree with me. How many of you guys have done this, even on a knife that has, like this guy, with a perfectly positioned flipper tab, right? And you've had the knife for a long time. You know exactly where to put your finger, right? And you're doing something. You go to flip it and you do this. That's what happens. It happens to all of us. At least one person in my comment section is going to go, nope, I'm perfectly in tune, right, with my flipper tab. I've never done that. My flipper knife and I are one. We are one being, and I have never failed. The strength of my index finger, my dominant index finger, is surpassed by none. It is the superior being. Shut up. I'm sorry. No, that happens. That happens. Especially if you like me, if you like XM18s. Oh my God, that happens to me all the time. It hurts, right? It happens sometimes. That's literally the only thing that bothers me is periodically I go, ouch, it happens. In gloves, it's not going to be that big of a deal, right? It doesn't hurt nearly as much because you're not dragging your skin and nearly your bone against that. The peak of the flipper tab or whatever it is, right? So there could be an ideally positioned flipper tab that could make that, if it's on top though, it's less natural for the vast majority of people. Will you adapt to it? Sure, right? Is there a means of deployment that I think is a little tiny bit more convenient where that type of thing is less likely to happen, right? Where it doesn't have to be the absolute, the positioning of it doesn't have to be so absolutely perfect to minimize that. Yeah, I think so. Can you guess? Yeah, the opening hole. I mean, I've talked about this a million times. There's going to be someone. But that reduces the strength of the blade for when I'm prying the engine out of my pickup. Yeah, if you do regular knife stuff with does it reduce the strength of the blade? Maybe in an extreme circumstance, right? But I don't plan on doing that type of stuff with my knife. If I need to pry something, I'm going to walk to my garage, get a pry bar, and pry with that. I'm not going to use my knife unless it's something, I've used the rat in a weird situation one time to pry something light, But yeah, if I decide to pry something with, say, the Spyderco Shaman, it's not going to be something that is so fixed into place that I think, gosh, the hole in the blade might actually cause a fracture point. I'm just not going to do that thing. I'm going to go, no, maybe I'll use a stick that's lying anywhere, right? Or a piece of rebar that's also fairly common. I'm going to use something else, something that may not be as ideal as a pry bar, but more ideal than my knife, and probably just as, probably a common object. Something that's within 10 feet of me at any given time. right? That would be better. So anyways, the hole in the blade thing. Barehanded, wheeling it out, reverse flick. You got gloves on, no problem, because you're going to be pushing that material into that hole. It creates, you know, pressure or traction, and then you're going to just open it up. In the case of Spyderco knives, man, my nose is crazy. In the case of Spyderco knives, specifically like the Spyderco Shaman, Spyderco Sage, this is the Sage 5 with compression lock. I'm talking about a knife that has hit every point so far, right? These two guys right here. The Sage 5 or Sage 1, the ones that I've handled in the Spyderco Para 3 are, you know, the right materials for the most part. The right, you know, type of, you know, manipulate in terms of like the deployment, right size. Man, yeah, positioning is great. You can do the thumb flick, you can do the reverse flick, you can do the thing like this, which sounds silly, but you know, I want to be able to open it however I need to open it in the moment, whatever is most convenient in the moment, whether I'm wearing gloves or not, right? That's important to me. And this opening hole here, and maybe not so much, I know people want to know, what is that? It's a Demco 8020. They're not super available right now. Specifically, like the holes in the Spyderco knives. And I don't think it needs to have this gigantic hump in it. You know, like you can see on the Spyderco Shaman, it's actually partially hidden under the, it doesn't have to be that tall. I mean, I can access it either way. It's easy. This is so convenient. I don't have to work against a spring. I can open it with gloves. I can open it slow. I can open it fast, right? It gives me, you know, while I've been working outside, it's just such a minor, it feels like an extension of my hand. I've said this before. This almost zero effort, zero brain capacity, right? From my pocket, pull it out, deploy it, right? Let's not do that. Pull it out, deploy it, use it, put it back. It's so easy. Such just minimal parts, minimal movements. Easy, easy, easy. I don't have to think about it. I don't have to fuss about it. Yeah. Simple things like, do I need like, it's like, I need to open a package. Movement 1, movement 2, cut, movement 3, movement 4. No, it doesn't need to be like that. But I'm just saying, like, I'm just trying to open the box. I don't have to be like, you know, oh, hold on, oh, this is the ring and the, oh, it's in the right position. Yeah, clunk. Safety first. Yeah. You know, I don't have to do that. I don't want to, I just want to open the box, right? I want my, whatever Amazon sent me today, you know, that's what I want. So yeah, ideal deployment method for me. I'm sure I made a lot of people mad. Like the deployment method I've been using has worked just fine. And that's the thing. You don't have to agree with me. If it's been working for you in your day-to-day life, right? I'm trying to, you know, explain my thoughts and at the same time connect with as wide an audience as possible and explain why I think what I do. But if what you've been using has been working for you, then you don't have to listen to this, right? If you've been using a thumb disc and you're like, hey, I've been using a thumb disc for 10 years and I've never had a problem, then you should keep using that. Just for me, this is what I've found to be the most convenient, the least number of movements, right? Something like this. It doesn't have to be a perfect circle, right? That's Spyderco's thing. It can be an oval or a half moon, right? Whatever. This, to me, is the most convenient. Yeah, guys, I think that's going to be pretty much it. I thought to myself, I was like, this is going to be a short episode, maybe 15 minutes. Nope, going on 30 minutes. That's going to be pretty much it for episode 3. Tune in next week for Loctite. That should be a fun discussion. And by fun, I mean one that will surely ignite dumpster fires in my comment section. Guys, if you enjoyed this video, oh yeah, please follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like, so check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on that Metal Complex logo right there and subscribe, because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.